All right, so from unicorns, we go on to a story about kings and dragons and the changing dynamics between investors and entrepreneurs. And I'm pleased to introduce our storyteller, Fritz Demopoulos, CEO, Queen's Road Capital. Over to you, Fritz.
Hey, Soo-Hoon, it's great to see you, and it's great to see so many people. I apologize, I can't be there in person. I'm always a big fan of WiT. Let's remember that investors used to be the kings. This was before. As Shakespeare wrote, the king's name is a tower of strength, strong, tall, and unassailable. And frankly, small business owners, entrepreneurs, many in the audience today, we needed them. The kings of venture capital held court while us entrepreneurs approached the palace on Sand Hill Road or maybe Raffles Place to either be ridiculed by their MBA-educated jesters or even worse, maybe something Lewis Carroll's Red Queen would be happy to do. The villagers or the audience, ourselves, we always wondered, what did these kings really provide? They seem to be only in their position due to their birthrights. For those of you who have had the chance to visit Silicon Valley, it can be an awe-inspiring, exhilarating, and sometimes frustrating experience. You can tell you are dealing with the king when he, or sometimes she, doesn't bother to greet you when you enter the palace, but instead the personal assistant leads you to an office where you are supposed to set up your laptop. And only once your laptop is connected, which is pretty amazing, you're fumbling by yourself in this meeting room and your pitch deck is ready to go, then all of a sudden you stand for the venture capitalist to enter the room. And if it's lunchtime, the venture capitalist will be chomping on a sandwich, and it will take him or her 30 seconds to realize maybe it's good manners to offer you a sandwich as well. But of course, that venture capitalist, you can tell he doesn't want you to say, "Can I have a sandwich?" So you're polite, you say, "No, I don't need one," and you're ready to start your presentation. As you go through your presentation, you have to avoid the annoyance of the venture capitalist always taking his phone and checking messages while you're giving your talk, talking about your life story. Or sometimes the venture capitalist is going to look out the window and go, "Oh, wait a minute, isn't that the new electric vehicle from Porsche?" while you're giving your presentation, talking about your life story. Then there are a few questions from this venture capitalist, which aren't very thoughtful and sometimes too prescriptive in nature. You should get into lithium batteries. But you take a big sigh and you think to yourself, well, this is a travel company, MF. I'll let you figure out what MF means. Towards the end of the anointed hour or 45 minutes, which is more the custom, the VC becomes his most energetic self. Well, hey, thanks for coming. This is great. This is a great business. We'll keep in touch. And of course, he doesn't walk you to the reception area, much less the elevator lobby, but instead slithers out a side door, leaving a few crumbs from his sandwich while you try to figure out your way to the exit. As you navigate that maze of cubicles and the San Francisco 49ers memorabilia, which is always in every Silicon Valley's office, or in every venture capitalist office in Silicon Valley, you notice that sandwich room sitting in a kitchen area. And you consider, should I deposit that cyanide tablet I brought with me in case the meeting really didn't go well? But you think the better of it, and you leave in somewhat exhilaration and complete frustration. But frankly, the kingdom of venture capital has changed. Its nature has changed. Entrepreneurs like Nate and Frederick and James Long, who spoke earlier, they're the new dragons. They can fly anywhere and cause havoc. Like any company or person who defies gravity, entrepreneurs have all the choices. That's amazing. They have all the choices. If one king is not behaving, no problem. The entrepreneurs fly elsewhere, just like water flows to the point of least resistance. But surprisingly, those kings of venture capital have proven themselves too. They've adroitly avoided the fate of Marie Antoinette, King Charles I, even Nero. And they have changed. They are more enlightened. They understand. And they add significant value too. Unlike the bad habits that stem from absolute power, the modern kings of finance are making incredible contributions to their entrepreneur constituents. And they're very happy to get you a sandwich. We've seen a number of changes in the investment landscape over the years. And many of those changes will have a favorable impact on our industry, the travel industry, which in a couple of years will be the world's largest again. I would like to share with you some of those changes. As I was suggesting, investors are not a necessary evil anymore, but rather they are important partners who add immense value to startups. I just think about our friends in Singapore today who have deep entrepreneur experience, such as Peng from Monk's Hill. He founded Match.com and Interwoven, or Hian from Open Space Ventures. He founded the Asia Food Network. And of course, Amit from Jungle Ventures. He had his own animation company before becoming a full-time venture capitalist. And these same investors, they have deep knowledge in the travel industry all of a sudden. Peng was an early advisor and mentor to Chunar, the company that I co-founded. Amit invested in Travel Mob and Voyagen. And of course, Hian invested in the Decacorn and completely successful Gojek in Indonesia. These are indeed good kings. Just when we thought there couldn't be more capital flowing into this asset class, that is early stage startups, well, we're even seeing more sources of capital than ever before. It's certainly getting crowded. Angel investors are doing larger rounds, and Singapore has a host of amazing angel investors. They're also syndicating deals and trying to take a cut of the action. Crowdfunding platforms are proving to be an interesting but still small alternative. Early stage venture capitalists, they're creating sidecar or growth vehicles so they can take advantage of the massive growth that some of these companies and some of the companies today on the WiT panel are going to definitely do that. And we see public market companies getting into the private deals. We see limited partners. Those are the investors and venture capitalists. So even VCs have investors, are co-investing to juice up their returns. And venture debt is becoming a common topic in board conversations. And let's not forget the synthetic world of crypto. We're seeing interesting opportunities for crypto as well. In other words, there's a lot more money flowing into this asset class, and the boundaries by which investors constrain themselves are becoming more porous. Some of those kingdoms are expanding. And what's interesting is investors are actually stepping up to lead rounds. This has nothing to do with companies in trouble as it used to imply. It used to be that if a company needed more money from its existing investors, people would say, well, how come they can't raise money from someone else? But that's not the case anymore, because in this super hot market, investors would rather invest in the dragon they know than in some unknown opportunity. And moreover, deals can get done much faster than ever before. Some deals, especially those in these special momentum categories that are taking advantage of COVID, such as fintech, AI, and health tech, are getting done very quickly. In fact, we've heard of deals getting done in 3 days after due diligence has taken place. That's pretty amazing and pretty fast. It used to be when the market was more normal, investors would see you in Singapore or Hong Kong or wherever, and they say, hey, next time you come into town, let's have coffee and give me an update. But you can't do that anymore. The market's moving too fast. However, not all deals are moving that fast. I talked about these momentum categories, AI, fintech, health tech. Some of the more normal categories, unfortunately, travel is still a normal category. We're seeing that the take your time process still exists. And the question is, of course, what do you want with your coffee when you come into town? Now, the speed of this market has other implications too. It doesn't seem that we have time to build relationships and get to know founders and understand the niches and nuances of every industry. And relationships are becoming more transactional. Do I dare say mercenary in nature? In fact, I think that Janet Jackson is the go-to philosopher for every entrepreneur today. Her famous quote, What have you done for me lately resonates with entrepreneurs the world over. Now, this is not necessarily bad. In some ways, relationships are always mercenary. Just talk to a founder who ran into a speed bump or a small amount of trouble and see if his investors or her investors really helped her. Yes, relationships were always mercenary, but it seems to be more obvious today. And you know what? Those dragons don't care anymore. And valuations are higher, but the amount of capital required to get to unicorn, decacorn, or even hectacorn status is something that we've never seen before. Startups used to be much more capital efficient. They were operating in a pure play digital environment. They didn't have to deal with the messy world of buildings and bricks. They only had to care about people. But today, capital is chasing many more deals, driving up the price of resources of everything. And these online hybrids are becoming messy and just require a lot more money. So it's hard to tell if we're in a better spot. Having said that, investors are also getting some favorable terms too. We've seen, for example, many protective provisions that are unseen in the past, protecting investors and their rights. And we're seeing, frankly, bond-like and debt-like structures. And what we know anything about debt is debt equates to power. And we want to keep that in mind. It used to be that all roads led to Silicon Valley, a mythical kingdom where startups grew on trees. And any urban planner will concede, however, that a hub and spoke system of roads, all roads leading to one point, is far less efficient and flexible than a point-to-point system, especially when the costs are marginal. It's the same reason why, unfortunately, Singapore Airlines gave up their A380 Super Jumbo. As we all intuitively grasp, no one place has a monopoly on talent, ideas, and most importantly, ambition. And it's clear that Beijing, Shanghai, Jakarta, Bangalore, Singapore, everyone in Singapore today, Delhi, are all receiving their unfair share of venture capital. For the first time, those kingdoms in Silicon Valley, well, they have less than 20% of venture capital in the States and less than 10% globally. All that money is flowing everywhere else. There's a simple definition of innovation: to create new value. And certainly without a doubt, we've seen that. New value is being created almost everywhere. But let's remember that some of us who are grounded and clear-headed today may be only one small step away from arrogance, hubris, and recklessness. In prior periods, we've seen reckless entrepreneurs supported by reckless investors achieve beautifully disastrous results. That's right, beautifully disastrous results. It's a bit like the dark side of the Force. It's easy to be tempted, but once you do, redemption is difficult. Whether you are a king or a dragon, you must be self-aware to survive. And just one final note. Remember, in George Martin's Game of Thrones, not many dragons and not many kings survived. Thanks, Soo-Hoon.